Welcome first the writer-director Scott Teams. And next, that very scary, bad guy, Ray McKinnon. And last, but hardly not least, Academy Award nominee, Tony winner, Emmy winner, the nicest old coder we've met in a long time. Please welcome Hal Holbrook.
Yeah, you look a lot. You look 20 years younger than you did in the movie. Did they put makeup on you to make you look older, or what?
No, I just get younger as I get older.
Well, that's a term we'd like to have you share with all of us. No small accomplishment. I think let's start with the writer-director, Scott, because it usually starts with a writer somewhere in the mix. You can plot. It's okay. Tell us a little bit, in this horrendous economic climate, where under the best of circumstances it's difficult to get funding to make an independent film.
Yeah.
And you decide to make a film that has as the lead a character who's in his 80s, where they consider 20 old in the film industry. So now he is better than a half a dozen 20-year-olds for sure, that's not the issue. But what about this piece made you feel compelled to take on this kind of a challenge?
The money. That's a Ray joke.
Okay, we're done with you.
That's not Ray. You know, it's either complete, it's either ignorance, naivete, or utter brilliance. I prefer the latter. That made me think that this was a story that someone would finance, and I was so drawn to the character. It was based on a short story by a guy named William Gay, who's a Tennessee novelist, and the short story is very short, and it's very Abner Lonzo-centric, and it's very much about this conflict. But I was so drawn to this guy, so full of honor and integrity, but stubborn as a mule, and the beauty and tragedy that comes along with that. And I was drawn to him. He reminded me a great deal of my maternal grandfather in particular. But just, I was born and raised outside of Atlanta, and I have longed to make films about the South as long as I've kind of wanted to be a filmmaker. And when I see great Southern films, they inspire me, and some of which were made by this man right here, Ray McKinnon, who's also a talented filmmaker as well, and his films inspired me, as well as films like Sling Blade, and which is kind of, for us as Southern filmmakers, was kind of our big touchstone that said, people will go see this, people will go see our movies, really? We can try to make them? You know, and that was only 10, 12 years ago.
There was a film with Robert Duvall very early in his career called Tomorrow.
Or the Foot.
That you and I know of, a few people know of. It didn't get the attention it deserved. When I say this movie made me think in some way of that, I don't mean in any way to say that it was derivative. It just meant that the issues, particularly in this film, are so universal. What to do with an aging parent, and from the parent's perspective, how to keep your independence, and how to fight off the inevitable, and how to look back while looking forward. When you're working with one of your actors, who is also a writer-director, that's not the usual way. It's usually somebody who's only or merely an actor. And do you feel somebody with the other talents looking over your shoulder saying, well, let's do this, let's be collaborative, or you firmly establish who's the director and who are the actors?
I kind of invited that. I mean, I knew what's great about Ray and Walt and Goggins, so they're producing partners. Walt, who plays Paul in the film, and I invited them. They've been involved in this film for going on 3 years, and because Terrence Berry, my producing partner on this film, and I had seen their movies, and I wanted that challenge. Because I wanted this film to be unapologetically Southern, but I want it to be authentic and real, and what I also want it to be like, this is the South, this is the country, and we're going to have the accents, and we're going to not be afraid of that. But I needed someone to be able to be a BS detector, someone who could look over my shoulder and say that's true, that's not true, and help shepherd us through this process. And so, for the top of our list when seeing who could be those people for us were Reagan Waltman and Lisa Blunt, his wife. So the three of them have made several films together, and so I just craved that challenge, that risk, and because I wanted someone to push me and make it real.
Speaking of challenge and risk, you're making this film. The burden of the film is on your shoulder. You're in practically every scene. You are both appealing and a pain in the rear end. Okay? What appealed to you about taking on this kind of a challenge at this time in your career?
Well, to begin with, it was obviously a very interesting and deeply character-driven script, which appeals to me as an actor. And you don't run across opportunities like this to play a role of this size and a role of this kind at my age or even earlier in Hollywood. I mean, Sony Pictures, if they made this, would never put me in this role. Let's face it. It's a gift from first Sean Penn for breaking the mold on who I am as an actor by putting me into the wild, which no one would have thought of putting me into, taking me out of a pinstripe suit, law office. And it made them think of me for this film and a couple others that I'm doing. So that was the opportunity there. But my wife, Dixie Carter, is from Tennessee. Dixie's in this movie. I had to talk her into playing this small part. I told her this would be a very important moment in the film. And they see you, Dixie. And I've lived in Tennessee quite a lot in the past almost 30 years. And I've got to know those people down there. Got to know the Southern people, the Southern families. And my father-in-law, Albert Carter, became like an inspiration to me. When my mother-in-law died in the late 80s, Cart, as we call him, came to live with us in California most of the time. Once in a while we'd go back to Tennessee. But he lived with us until he died at the age of 96. He was a Tennessee man from a small town with 2 gas pumps and 1 cannon, not too far from Linden, Tennessee, in West Tennessee. And he was the kind of a man who did not offer his opinion until he was asked for it. Then you got it. He also was of a different political persuasion from me. He thought Ronald Reagan was second only, and perhaps not second to George Washington. So we never talked politics. There were many social issues we never spoke about. But over the years, I grew to have such a respect for Carter as a man. And this role came along, and I saw a lot of my father-in-law in it. Because when he was dying, he said to Dixie one day, when in California, we had this beautiful, we bought a house and built a whole thing for him, remodeled it for him. And when he was in his room, beautiful room with all the books, he had so many books on the wall, and he said to Dixie one day, "Darling, I'm getting dying signals. I'm going to go back home." And so we picked up our whole family and moved back to Tennessee, but thinking it would only be a few months. 2 years. 2 years. Because this man did not know how to quit.
Inspirational.
He did not know how to quit.